Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to be learning how to convert customary units of length. Before we get started, it would be helpful if you had a pencil, some scratch paper, an eraser, and a partner to help you talk out the problems. Don't forget, you can always pause the video and go back to parts of the video that you want to review. Let's start with this. For many of the roller coasters at Magic Mountain, riders often have to be at least 48 inches tall. If my friend Luke is 4 feet tall, is he tall enough to ride at the amusement park? This type of question is something that we're going to be able to answer today, because today we are learning how to convert or change customary units of length. Before we get started, go ahead and write down your level of understanding. Are you a 4, 3, 2, or 1? We'll come back to this at the end of the lesson. As a review, we'll be multiplying and dividing whole numbers during today's lesson. And I wanted to just remind you what that looked like. If I were multiplying 12 times 4, these two whole numbers, I would multiply first in the ones place. 2 times 4 is 8, and then I would multiply across. 4 times 1 is 4. If I were dividing whole numbers, I would ask myself, how many times can 4 go into 4? 1 time. And I'd write that down here. I would subtract, bring down my 8. How many times can 4 go into 8? 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8. I would subtract, and I'd have no remainder. So these two skills are something that we'll be looking at today as we're converting measurements. Converting means that we're changing from one unit to another. Units that are a part of the customary system are units of length that are often used in the United States, like inch, foot, yard, and mile. This little chart here is going to be handy as we convert today. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet, or 36 inches. 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet, or 1,760 yards. I also put the abbreviations there on the bottom for you in case you need them for any of today's problems. Our success criteria today is made up of what we reviewed, that we can multiply whole numbers and we can divide whole numbers. I also want you to know that your success criteria is also reliant on the chart I gave you about customary measurements. We'll be able to determine the equivalence of those measurements by just looking at the chart. So let's take a look back at that first question I asked you. Luke is 4 feet tall. You have to be 48 inches to ride that roller coaster. Is he going to be tall enough? So I'm going to need to convert. I need to convert 4 feet into inches, because I need to know if it's equal, less than, or greater than 48 inches. So I first asked myself, I'm going from feet to inches. Am I going from a larger measurement to a smaller measurement, or a smaller measurement to a larger? Well, feet are larger than inches, so I'm going from large to small. And since I'm going from large to small, I am going to be multiplying. So I'll look down here at my chart and I see 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. I'll be multiplying 4 feet by the number of inches that are in 1 foot, which is 12, which gives me 48 inches. So is Luke tall enough to go on the roller coaster? He sure is. Now let's go over our steps. The first thing we need to do is write down the units of length. We have to decide if we're going to be going from a smaller unit into a larger unit or larger into smaller. That will help us determine if we're dividing or multiplying. Then we'll use our chart to help us. So let's take a look at one more example before we practice some. I want to convert 42 inches into feet. Well, in this example, I'm going from inches to feet. I'm going from a smaller unit of measure to a larger unit of measure because inches are smaller. Since I'm going smaller, I'm going to be dividing. So I'm going to look again here. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. I'm going to be dividing 42 inches into 12 inches so I can determine the number of feet. So I'll come over here and complete my division. 12 can't go into 4, but it can go into 42 3 times. 12 times 3 is 36. And when I subtract, I get 6. I can use my 6 remainder and my 12 to make a fraction. That gives me 3 6/12. 3 6/12 can be simplified to 3½ So 42 inches is equal to 3½ feet. So now let's try some together. If you want to pause and try it on your own, you can go ahead, or if you want to stick with me and work it through, then we can do that too. So now we have 60 inches into feet. I am going from inches to feet, which is smaller to larger. When I'm going from smaller to larger, I'm going to be dividing. So 60 inches, I go down here and I see that I'm going 1 foot equals 12 inches. So I'm going to be dividing 60 into 12 so I can determine the number of feet. 60 divided by 12 is 5. So my answer is 5 feet. Let's try the next one. 16 yards into feet. I'm going from yards to feet. So I'm going from a larger measurement to a smaller measurement, which means I'm going to be multiplying. If I look here, I know 1 yard equals 3 feet. So I'm going to be multiplying 16 yards times 3, which gives me 48. So 16 yards is equal to 48 feet. Let's try the next one. 39 feet into yards. I'm going from feet to yards, which is smaller to larger, which means I'll be dividing. Here's my measurement for yards and feet. I'm going to be dividing 39 into 3, which will give me the number of yards. If I come over here to divide, I can see that 3 can go into 3 one time. I subtract, bring down my 9. 3 can go into 9 3 times. My answer is 13 yards. Let's try another one. 2 miles into yards. I'm going from large to small, which means I'm going to be multiplying. I go down here and I see my mile to yard conversion. I'm going to be multiplying 2 times 1,760. When I multiply those two together, I get 3,520 yards. All right. Now, what was our learning objective today? Today, we learned how to convert customary units of length. Go ahead and write down your level of understanding after completing the lesson. Did you improve? Do you have to go back and review? Now let's take a look at this question. Dana ran 1/4 mile. Trish ran 445 yards. Who ran the greater distance? Well, I need to convert this 1/4 mile into yards in order to determine who ran more. So I'm going from mile to yards, which means I'm going from large to small, which means I'll be multiplying. 1/4 times 1,760, because there are 1,760 yards in a mile. When I multiply those two together, I'll make this a denominator of 1. When I multiply across, I get 1,760 over 4, which is equal to 440 yards. So it seems as if Trish ran more because she ran 445 yards. Now, which of the following is not a common unit of measurement for the customary system? We have feet, inches, meter, and miles. If you chose meter, you're correct. Feet, inches, and miles are part of the customary system. Thank you so much for following along and learning how to convert customary units of length. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more direct instruction videos.